Hi, this is Father Lou Scurti with the Reunion Series. Once again, I'm here with Father Mike Russo, who is in Monterey, California, talking about his life and ministry and communications. Very, very interesting. And we're here on part 3 of the interview. Very interesting as he follows the Pope. How's that for footprints? Let's go to Mike. Following the Pope. First of all, which Pope were you following?
Well, I followed pretty much all of them. You won't believe this, but in 1965, when Pope Paul came to the United States for the very first time at the UN, my dad and I were standing outside of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Wow.
And, I guess I've been a Pope groupie ever since. And so I pretty much did all of the papal tours in the United States for John Paul II, and then for Benedict, and most recently, obviously, for Pope Francis.
On behalf of CBS?
Primarily on behalf of CBS, yes.
Great.
This time around with Francis, actually, I was working for the USCCB, for the Bishops' Conference, giving them expert help with a whole platoon of wonderful people who I was able to work on the other side of the papal tour, and it was great fun. And I got to meet a lot of young people, all of whom are involved in church media, and for me that was a real thrill.
Oh, that's great to hear young people involved with church media.
Yeah, I learned something really quite interesting about that. You know, we tend to think of the church in bifurcated in many different ways, liberals, conservatives, you name the group. But we all were kind of like in the same pool, assisting the church in welcoming the Pope and in dealing with the media.
Right.
And while I tended to be on television and on radio and dealing with some of the local stations as well as the networks, it was good to see people of different backgrounds of Catholics who were all involved in the same kind of effort. I mean, I think that was quite amazing.
Do you think Francis brings that out? I mean, really encourages that multi-age, multi-career, multi-interest
Yeah, well, he's
Catholic?
still the most interesting world figure, isn't he? I mean, here is a man not only with great spiritual depth, I call him the parish priest of the world.
Yes.
I mean, he's able to talk to people heart to heart, person to person, in a way that few religious and public figures can.
Right.
And I think that's quite amazing, quite frankly.
If I don't quote him, I refer to him in almost every homily. I'm almost embarrassed, but I say, I'm his #1 fan.
Well, that's why I named my website francisfactor.com.
Great.
Essentially because I think he's jump-starting the church.
Yes.
When you think about previous popes, even in our own lifetime, the fact that someone would seriously read some of the encyclicals is not exactly something most people did, not even priests.
Right.
The truth of the matter is, these exhortations that Pope Francis has come up with, one every year, they're extraordinary documents and easy to access, I mean, for the average person.
Absolutely. I mean, everything came together. Social media, the availability online of documents, and his popularity coming together. And I think that in many ways is the Holy Spirit in the 21st century church.
I think so, yes.
When he delivered the Joy of the Gospel, I was asked to give Stations of the Cross in the church in Florida, and I said to the pastor, "Would you mind if I took the Joy of the Gospel and applied them to the 14 stations?" And I didn't use the whole exhortation, but it was so. I mean, I had nothing to do with it. All I did was read it and apply it to certain stations, but it was so moving. People loved it because it took his words, contemporary words, his theology, and applied it to a very traditional Catholic function, the Stations of the Cross.
Sure.
And really, really beautiful. Okay, let's talk about following him.
I'd love to see those because at the church here, St. Carlos Cathedral, during the Lenten season, our lay group do the Stations of the Cross prior to the 12 noon Mass.
Right.
And it's very moving. I think my friends here would love to see that.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if I have it on video, but I do have it written.
Yeah, written down would be great.
Okay, I'll make sure I'll put a note and get them to you. Okay, following the Pope. Let's talk about the first popes and then bring it up to the present following Francis.
Yeah, well, Francis, again, is a case study of how large these things have gotten.
Right.
And in some ways, it's almost kind of scary. The apparatus to bring a pope to the United States today by way of security arrangements,
right,
by way of going to particular dioceses, It's a little mind-boggling. I went on the preview tours where I got to meet, the various people that were covering it, but also meeting the Secret Service and taking us from venue to venue, and considering some of the security issues. It's amazing that he's able to do what he does, given the constraints that they're under, and of course the overwhelming costs that these things will create. But is it worth doing? I think it is.
Oh, absolutely.
He certainly insists on meeting people as he did in Philadelphia, in a penitentiary and in jail, meeting young people. He is, in a way, trying to bring that unique ministry to bear wherever he goes. The most recent example where he is able to go to the island of Lesbos,
right,
to meet those refugees coming from Syria and other parts of the Middle East. But he's also able to use it as a diplomatic signaling where he is there not alone, but with the patriarchs of the Greek Orthodox churches. And
media.
Signal.
Excuse me?
That's a signal for his ecumenical efforts.
Yes. He does combine so many aspects of church ministry to each time he opens his mouth or visits a site, washes the feet of people
of women
and non-Catholics. Yeah, I mean, what more can he say that those actions say? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well, what it does say is he has his own agenda, which sometimes goes contrary to those people who are kind of saying, well, it's not in our little Catholic rule book that he can wash the feet of women. I mean, it's preposterous, and yet he's able to kind of get around these rules because he is the Pope.
The phrase I hate the most in the church, it's never been done that way. Oh, sure. It's like a cross.
So do you think that we should have a 20-year period where we study whether women should be ordained to the diaconate?
I think he's right there, right on top. He brought it up. I think it'll happen. I hope it doesn't take 20 years.
No, I don't think so.
No.
But I think there are people who would want it to be 20 years.
Stretch it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so with his spontaneity and his outgoing personality, was that a problem following him around?
No, I mean,
this last trip?
For most people who watch this stuff, even though I go to these events, I'm often in the control room and looking at video, kind of getting involved with some behind-the-scenes things that deal with editorial content. But during the trip early last year, occasionally I would kind of wake up and look at the monitors like anybody else, and he was coming out of the Papal Nuncio's residence in Washington, and just these kids had been waiting there for like 3 hours, and yet the moment he walked out, they seemed to be turned on. He was turned on, and then he went to the White House, and from there took this what I would call a victory lap from the White House to St. Matthew's Cathedral to see the bishops, and it was like Douglas MacArthur returning from Asia, and it was one of the most amazing pieces. And of course, the next day, with him speaking at the U.S. Congress, and Speaker of the House Boehner in tears. Little did we realize the next day he would resign from the speakership. But it tells you what kind of emotional impact that moment had on a lot of people.
Yes. And when you look at his background, he was being prepared for this, and he's doing nothing different than he was doing. I mean, he's doing it on a wider stage, but he was doing all of this in his early days as priest and bishop.
This is why having a Jesuit pope is so interesting.
Go ahead.
I call him parish priest of the world.
Yes.
And for this reason, he did things as a Jesuit, as a parish priest, as a rector of a seminary, all of which tell us that he was ministerially prepared. I would dare say he's the most, prepared pope to be that parish priest of the world than the others who primarily were in the diplomatic corps. They were canon lawyers, university-trained theologians, all of which are good.
Yes.
But the basic work of any priest is pastoral.
And he is a shepherd. He really is so parochial. I mean, and right down to the nitty-gritty. And I always say he gets under our skin, and probably under the skin of many of our bishops, and I hope inspires us and them.
I would hope so. Remember that in trying to change anything, the old line from that New Yorker, Robert Moses, if you want to make an omelet, you have to break eggs. And occasionally he's had to do that, both in the Jesuits and even now as Pope.
Yes.
So I hope that is kind of an idea of why all of us have to accept the challenge of his leadership.
Mike, you prepared us for your gardener, and we hear him now in the background. So we're going to use this as a natural break. I do want to hear your reviews of those movies, so would you call me back?
Okay.
When the gardener has finished his work?
I want to get the gardeners to kind of stop what they're doing.
Very good. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Mike. This has been Father Lou Scurti with Father Mike Russo, being interrupted by his gardeners.